couple of this island's most notable big game residents are getting a lot of attention today. The helicopter coming in has a couple of unusual passengers, 2 antelope, later some bighorn sheep, as these biologists track some unusual family trees. The patients were airlifted to sort of a makeshift field hospital on Antelope Island. There was no small amount of excitement, even a little drama as each new flight arrived. The work in the operating room was intense.
They're looking for the ear tag. These animals have been tagged previously, and they're looking for the numbers so they can look at the records.
These are pronghorns, part of a fledgling herd introduced to the craggy slopes of Antelope Island just 5 years ago. The work goes rapidly to minimize stress on the animals. Blindfolds help put them at ease, while biologists take notes that detail the growth and condition of every animal.
This is the radio collar that they'll be putting on. They're solar powered, and they've just been put on a regular cattle tag.
The ear tags with the special radios will help track the animals. But this tiny plug of tissue and hair may be the most valuable commodity gathered that day in the field.
They'll be taking tissue samples for DNA testing, and they're looking at parentage, basically what bucks are breeding what does, and looking at inbreeding, at what levels inbreeding affect populations, and so on.
Graduate students from USU and from the University of Nebraska assisted with the work. Some high school students from Park City also helped. This island provides an almost total isolated sanctuary where many aspects of herd dynamics can be studied. This DNA tracking study hopes to document the family tree of every pronghorn on this island.
We suspect that that only a very small proportion of the original bucks actually reproduced and had surviving offspring on the island. So it's probably going to be a very low number of the original founders.
Why would you guess?
Because we've also been watching the movements of the females, and females tend to choose just a few of the males as mates, and then the rest don't have the opportunity to mate.
Put on your shoulder.
To wrap up the work, each pronghorn is weighed.
That's good. Okay, what's the
130. Got him down. He's down. Was he off the ground?
Yeah.
And then carried to a release site where the blindfold and the shackles are removed.
There you go.
Okay, 1, 2, 3, go.
What is still a wild animal bounds away, unhurt by the encounter. The red patch on its rump just paint used to mark it from the air. Helicopters are used to cover the island's rugged terrain, and these nets are used to help snare the animals.
What it does is the net's fired by a blank .308 cartridge, and it projects out, I think it's a 12 by 12 net, and it basically tangles the animal, knocks them down. They get all bound up in the net, and you get out, hobble their legs, blindfold them, take the net off. We put them in a bag, hook them onto the bottom of the helicopter, and carry them back here.
The hobbles and the restraining bag make sure that the animal does not break loose in flight and cause what could be some difficult moments in the back of that helicopter. There has been some concern over the slow growth of the little herd. A large number of coyotes on the island is thought responsible for some predation. But only 10 of the 27 original animals transplanted here 5 years ago were does. 12 more female pronghorn arrived on the island just last month.
This is a good watchable wildlife opportunity. The Division of Wildlife are pretty happy to participate with Division of Parks in this. It's a really good use of wildlife. This is good non-consumptive watchable wildlife. Pronghorn are pretty easy to spot, and they're not very spooky, and they do real well.
This little herd of antelope, now about 60 animals strong, is becoming increasingly easy to see on the island. Drive around a little bit, you're likely to spot them. The sheep are an entirely different issue, and we'll tell you more about that in a moment. First, to check this week's best.